Throughout history, we've kind of been sold this very specific image of what empire building looks like. You know the one, right? We picture massive armies, clashing swords, and these ruthless conquerors seizing land through pure, unadulterated brute force. But if you look really closely at the empires that actually lasted, a super fascinating pattern emerges. The initial conquest, that's really only half the story. The real question is, what actually holds a conquered empire together once the dust settles? Is it the sword or is it the word? Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the hidden mechanics of power and really explore the diplomatic secrets behind conquest. We are focusing our lens on one of the absolutely most incredible figures in Southeast Asian history, King Kyansittha of the mighty pagan empire. We're going to see exactly how a legendary warrior transformed into an even more legendary statesman, mastering not just the brutal art of war, but the incredibly delicate art of peace.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The myth of brute conquest. 2. Tactical military playbook. 3. Diplomatic integration. 4. Balancing might with diplomacy. 5. Culture as political glue. And 6. Timeless lessons in leadership. Section 1. The myth of brute conquest. Swords, shields, and stability.
To really understand the diplomat, we first have to understand the warrior. Kyansittha didn't start out as a king holding court in a fancy palace. No, he started as a brilliant sword-wielding general fighting under King Anaranta in some seriously critical campaigns, like Thotan and Tenasserim. But here's the thing. Winning the battle is literally useless if you don't know how to win the peace. That is the core problem of early empire building. Seizing territory, honestly, that just requires a bigger army. But keeping that territory without facing endless, exhausting rebellion year after year, well, that requires a completely different kind of genius. Because you can't just occupy a land and expect blind obedience, you actually have to govern it.
Section 2. Tactical military playbook and hard power execution.
Now, what's really interesting about his approach is his raw tactical mind. Before he was a king, Kyansittha was a general who fundamentally understood that just throwing brute force at a problem was incredibly inefficient. This led him to a highly effective three-part battlefield strategy. Step 1. Gather intel. According to historical records, he heavily prioritized knowing enemy troop strength, studying the terrain, and understanding supply lines before a single sword was even drawn. He did his homework. Step 2. Move rapidly. He designed his forces for incredible agility, aiming to strike way before the enemy could even prepare their defenses. And Step 3. Target the leader. Rather than engaging in these mindless full army clashes where thousands of people died unnecessarily, he executed decapitation strikes. He targeted leaders in vital positions to just instantly disrupt the enemy's command structure. It was calculated, it was efficient, and it was devastatingly effective.
Section 3. Diplomatic integration. The real secret to success. So while Kyansittha was undeniably a master of war, his absolute greatest secret, the real reason his name still echoes through history today, was what he did the exact moment the fighting stopped. Traditional conquest usually relies on heavy oppression and fear, right? And that inevitably leads to endless rebellion. Kyansittha, however, championed a people-based governance model. Instead of just crushing the conquered regions under a military boot, he kicked off this brilliant policy of integration and trust building. This was especially vital when it came to the Mon people. The Mon were this incredibly culturally rich and economically advanced civilization in the south. By choosing to integrate their culture and explicitly respecting their language, rather than just destroying them, he absorbed all their economic power and administrative expertise right into his own empire. He recognized a really simple truth. You cannot maintain an empire if half your population absolutely hates you. By respecting the local populace and negotiating that integration, he secured long-term stability. Section 4. Balancing might with diplomacy and retaining the empire. Now, when Kyansittha officially ascended to the throne as king of the Pagan Empire, his entire strategic calculus had to change. So the crucial point here is his restraint, and that shift is incredibly clear when we look at his timeline. In the early empire phase, the focus was all about rapid expansion, and the main tool was obviously military might. But during Kyansittha's actual reign, the primary focus shifted entirely to maintaining the acquired territory and quelling any internal rebellion. His main tools became diplomacy and consolidation. He actively prioritized stabilizing his existing borders over the really dangerous, resource-draining allure of endless military expansion. The guy knew exactly when to sheathe the sword. Section 5. Culture as political glue and the power of belief. If you want to unify a massive, diverse, and completely fractured state, you need something way deeper than just laws or borders. You need shared belief. And this brings us to cultural diplomacy. This is all about fostering unity and elevating political prestige without spilling a single drop of blood. And Kyansittha, he was a master of this. He didn't just build basic infrastructure, he built breathtaking religious monuments. The most famous is the absolutely stunning Ananda Temple. Now, this wasn't just a building, it was an architectural marvel that took roughly 15 years to construct, featuring these 4 massive standing Buddhas facing the cardinal directions, perfectly symbolizing his absolute omnipresent rule. He fervently supported and elevated Buddhism throughout the empire, but we really shouldn't view these merely as acts of personal faith. These were highly calculated, unifying political masterstrokes. By creating shared cultural and religious institutions, he bound the people together under a common identity that was inextricably linked to his own royal prestige. He literally made the culture itself the glue of his empire.
Section 6. Timeless Lessons in Leadership, from the 11th century to today.
And this brilliantly illustrates some universal truths that we can absolutely use today, pulling the strategies of an 11th century conqueror straight into the modern world. Let's just distill the ultimate takeaways here. Because while historians might debate the minor details of specific ancient campaigns, Kyansittha's overarching formula for lasting stability remains completely undisputed. First, base your decisions on hard intelligence, not assumptions. Next, maintain extreme agility in your actions, allowing yourself to pivot when the landscape inevitably changes. Practice collaborative, people-based governance to build genuine trust among the people you lead. Always balance force or hard executive power with the soft power of diplomacy and culture. And above all else, prioritize long-term stability over the immediate gratification of short-term wins.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Kyansittha proved over 900 years ago that conquering a nation takes an army, but actually keeping it takes a diplomat. When we look around at today's global conflicts, modern corporate takeovers, or hey, even leadership struggles in our own daily lives, are we focusing way too much on the battle and not nearly enough on the peace? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today, and keep questioning what truly holds the world together.